Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hops Report. I'm LT.
And I'm Bacon.
And let's talk some beer. Today we are at the Brooksville Brewing Company, our sponsor, here in Spring Hill, Florida. And we are taking a look at one of Bacon's beers. Bacon is the brewmaster, or brewmeister here at Brooksville Brewing Company. What are we looking at, man?
Today we're going to check out my Duke's Reserve Pumpkin Ale. It's my first shot at making a pumpkin ale, but I was taught well by one of our local beer heroes, a fellow named Bob Haig.
Bob Haig.
Bob Haig. He gave me some good background here, and I found some good resources on the internet and tried my hand at a pretty moderate one. There's a lot of different styles of pumpkin beer that come out every year. I think I lean a little bit closer to the sweet ones, but I find myself to be in the minority. So,
you rock this for Halloween, right? Like it is just for
fall,
okay, for the
Halloween, fall. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see it gone before Thanksgiving, you know, maybe a little bit after, but
I see a lot of them get released around the same time, like right around, like, you know, sometime in October, early October. Everyone's waiting for them. When's the Jacks coming out? When's this coming out? So yeah, so this is ideal time for the release of this beer.
Yeah.
Your inaugural pumpkin
ale, yeah.
Okay.
I've had it out for about 2 weeks. It's been pretty well received, and it is pretty much what I aim for. I did a half batch. Now my brewery here, I can do 8.5 barrels, which is about 265 gallons of beer. This time I opted to do a half batch, it being a seasonal. Figured I didn't want it hanging around too long. So
you want to gauge interest too. You want to make sure everyone gets. I mean, first one, you want to release it,
limit mistakes,
and then also you want to keep people wanting more.
That's
Always keep them wanting more. They said.
Miles Davis said that once. So if you can't learn from Mr. Miles Davis, then
who can you learn from?
All right. I used 48 pounds of pumpkin in this beer.
Where'd you get that from?
From the local food purveyor that we buy most of our food for the restaurant here for. It's actually the pumpkin pie stuffing.
Okay.
What I did was I spread it onto some cookie sheets, spread it thin, and caramelized it. Put it in the oven, caramelized it to really get some of the really good sugars out of it. And so I did that with all 48 pounds. I threw that in at the beginning of the boil, which is the same time when you put in your hops. And along with my 48 pounds of pumpkin, I used a good bit of cinnamon, a lot of nutmeg, and more than a generous dash of coriander. I used Munich malt in this, along with some traditional pale ale malt, to give it kind of an Oktoberfest feel, which I thought would be appropriate for the season. And I think the end result's pretty much what I'm looking for. I've got a brown, orangey ale. I think that reflects well for the pumpkin, and you can definitely.
It looks a little cloudy. I mean, it looks like not cloudy. I mean, it just looks like it's going to be rich. It looks like has some stuff going on here. It's not like just something I'm going to see through. So it's not like some kind of light nothing beer. It's got like
it's got a reasonable body, and some of the cloudiness does come from the fact I don't filter any beer here, which does make it more of a living, breathing beer. It changes a little bit along the way, but you can definitely smell the coriander and the cinnamon on it right away.
Let me ask you a tech question here, because as everybody knows, I'm kind of relatively new to beer. I've enjoyed quite a bit of it. Gained about maybe 30 pounds of it my freshman year of college from drinking a lot of it. But what is when you mentioned before that you added the pumpkin at a particular time in the brew process, what's the wort?
The wort is the beer before it's been turned into beer by fermentation. So it's basically a sugary liquid which is derived from your mashed grains.
And that's when you added the pumpkin, when its wort process, or like after it was fermented?
Once I filtered the wort out of my grain, I put it into my cooking tun, and that is wort, which at that point I'm going to start boiling and adding hops to, and so I added it at the same time as the beginning of my boil. Like there's 3 steps in the boil. Traditionally, you're going to usually use hops at the beginning of your boil for flavor. About halfway through your boil, you may add more hops, and that would be for. Actually, I'm sorry. First one is for bitterness. The second one is for flavor, and the third one, which will be done within usually the last 5 minutes of the boil, is going to give you a lot of aroma. Now, I use the pumpkin from the get-go, so it's really been boiled in the entire 90 minutes of my boil. Really gave you pumpkin through and through on this beer.
You just kicked off an idea here. When you said the 90 minutes of your boil, does Dogfish Head, is their 90-minute IPA? Does that have anything to do with being like a 90-minute boil?
That's exactly what it means. They have a 60-minute IPA, which means that their hops are only in there for 60 minutes. Not that that's a short amount of time to put hops in, but obviously, if you boil for 90 minutes, it's going to have that much more time to absorb hops and bitterness, which comes from alpha acids within the hops. That's going to give them longer time. I mean, it's increasing it by a third, so that's going to be a significant addition of alpha acids and bitterness.
When you talk about a hoppy beer, like when hop heads, and when you talk about a hoppy beer, is it more just does it taste more like hops? Is it more like is it like I get the feeling like when I talk about a hop head, I think maybe it's more intense or it's more acidic or maybe just more lively. I mean, what is it? What is a hoppy beer versus an unhoppy or non-hoppy beer?
Well, what I prefer, this is what I prefer. In a hoppy beer, I like to have a lot of hop flavor and a lot of hop aroma. The bitterness, I think, is something that in a well-crafted beer is going to be balanced against the sweetness of the malt. So I think that in a way that almost cancels each other out. The better crafted the beer, the less you'll notice the bitterness of it. What I prefer out of a hoppy beer is when the hop flavors show forth, and I'd love to get a great big nose of especially Cascade hops. That's my favorite style of hop. So I can smell Cascades from 40 paces. I did not use Cascades in this. I did use Willamettes, or Willamette, as I believe they like to say up in Washington.
Is it Oregon? Oregon. Willamette.
Willamette.
Okay.
Well, I say Willamette, and most people I know say it, but I was corrected very harshly by a resident of that town, Willamette.
Willamette, yeah.
So, I use those, which are kind of like Cascade's little cousin. Overall, this beer is a lot like a German alt beer, which is essentially a pale ale that's aged a little longer, and I did use some some German malt along with it, and I used some German hops. So, I think it's pretty well balanced. You get some sweetness. I don't think it's overpowering in such a way that like you're drinking a pumpkin pie, but I do recommend drinking it with one of my pumpkin pie shots, which we've aptly named the Pumpkin Bomb.
Okay. What I get on this beer is a lot of subtlety. This is like you mentioned. It's not like eating a pumpkin pie. I don't get like knocked over the head with flavor. I get subtlety in this beer, which is nice. Sometimes you get, for instance, I had the Blue Point Blueberry Ale from Long Island, and it's very aromatic. You get a lot of blueberry on the nose, but I get hardly any blueberry on the palate. This I get probably as much pumpkin on the nose as I do on the palate, and it's subtle, it's there, it's enjoyable, but it's actually something that is it's like a beer I can have year round. It's not something that is so overwrought with pumpkin that I feel like I have to have it in fall.
Right. It's not a super novelty, and that's one of the things I was looking for. Is not blow people away with it, and it could be considered like an autumn ale with a hint of pumpkin, which I wouldn't think that would be a terrible thing to be called.
No, that would not be a terrible thing.
So,
all right. Well, cheers and congratulations on your inaugural pumpkin ale.
Thank you.
On your inaugural pumpkin ale, and I think we're about wrapped for today for the Hops Report. I'm LT.
And I'm Mark Bacon.
And we will catch you next time. Cheers and good in you.